Hello everyone. Welcome to the third session of our August month, that is the governance. Now we have made some changes to our governance, what we have done from the last time. Now, for example, earlier we used to have sessions or the parts of our governance as policies, in initiatives, program. This time we have decided to divide the governance section sectorally. So, for example, one section will be education, skill slash innovation. The one section will be related to health. One section will be related to e-governance. One section will be related to agriculture, economy, like that. And let us see how it goes. This will also help you to garner some points for your mains preparation as well as your overall preparation for a particular topic. Let us start. So, with respect to this education, the first topic is R.C. Cohort Expert Committee. First of all, it's not important because as you can see, I put one symbol also. Why? Because the committee was set up for the impact of COVID-19 on the academic calendars and learning process of the higher education. And yes, it has given its recommendation. It has been incorporated. Your prelims is next year, so not required. Right? So remember, R.C. Cohort Committee for. Now, if the question will be there, question will be for a significant subject. For example, let us assume a question on new education policy, right? Which cover the committees involved. Then one of the option can be R.C. Cohort Committee. So even if you know about this, you can get the answer right, and you can eliminate this if you know this fact. That's all the utility of this particular fact, right? The next one is HEFA, that is Higher Education Funding Agency. It's in the news because JNU, it was in the news because JNU got some money from HEFA for the new infrastructure. So from the name itself, Higher Education Funding Agency. So it's an agency which provides fund to the higher education institutions for building the world-class infrastructure, R&D infrastructure and all these things, right? It's a joint venture of Government of India and the Canara banks, remember. So around 90% is by 19.9% of Government of India and 9% or around 10% of Canara Bank. So higher education, it is the for financing of the higher education in 2017 they have come up with this particular agency. The Government of India 90%, Canara Bank 9.90%. It's a Section 8 non-profit company. Can you give me example of more non-profit company such as GSTN, such as NPCI? These are non-for-profit company under Section 8 of the Companies Act. Secondly, as it is related to funding, so it is also an NBFC, that is non-deposit taking NBFC regulated by RBI. There are a lot of NBFCs, we will discuss that as the course of our discussion later on. And one of the type of NBFC are the non-deposit taking NBFCs, and they are regulated by the RBI. Next. The objective, as we have discussed, the creation of the capital asset in the premium education institutions. And now its scope has been expanded. And this is what you need to keep in mind. That not only the higher education, but also the school education and the education institution under Ministry of Health. For example, big medical colleges and like that. So these are the mandate. This is a mandate of the HEFA. Now the government in financial year 2018-19 has come up with a RISE 2022. That is revitalizing infrastructure and system in the education. And in that they have said that by 2022, we will invest 1 lakh crore money into this education institutions, right? And out of which 10,000 will be given by HEFA and around 90,000 HEFA will raise from the markets. So HEFA will raise from the markets 90,000 crores. It will give it to the institutions such as, for example, JNU, and the institutions will give it back also with loan, with the interest. So keep that in mind. It is now a market-based borrowings of the higher education institutions. And when the market-based borrowing is there, it is being said when it was projected that the higher education institutions now will be more proactive how they use these funds. Because obviously, if they cannot provide that much quality from the funds used, obviously they have to give the money back. It is not a grant-based system. So switching from a grant-based system to a loan-based system. So that is RISE 2022, revitalizing infrastructure and systems in education in the financial year 18-19. Then we have the NRA, that is National Recruitment Agency. The government has touted it as a very landmark reform into the recruitment agency in India as far as the recruitment is concerned. So this agency will bring about the recruiting reform for the central government jobs and their banks as well. It's a multi-agency body which will conduct a CET, that is Common Eligibility Test, and it will screen a shortlist candidate for Group B and Group C non-technical post. Let us see more about it. So, first of all, it's a society which will be registered under the Societies Registration Act. You need to keep in mind that means it is not an statutory body. No, it's not an statutory body. The set will be done for the common eligibility test will be done for the non-gazetted post. So not for the UPSC aspirants, UPSC civil service aspirants. So for the government and for the banks. Currently, this is being done by the IBPS for the banks. For the government side, SSC is there. Railway recruitment boards, for example, the jobs that are being done in the railway sector. Now, this exam will be done twice a year. And there will be 3 levels. So for those who are past 10th, those who passed 12th, and those who are the graduates, depending upon the exam to exam. Then the 12 language will be there, and it will be the short listing will be done based upon that. And once you give this set, the score will be valid for 3 years. Now what it will be? Have you, I hope you know about this CAT, Common Eligibility Test. This CAT exam, that for MBAs. Then we have the GMAT, for example. So these are the for example, GRE, you must have heard GRE for getting admission to university. So these are the kind of exams you give, you get a score. For example, SAT exam. So you get a score. If you give this particular exam, you'll get this score. And when you apply for any job, this score will be one of the benchmarks when you apply for the job. Now, for example, let's say tomorrow in the bank, SBI, a job comes in. They say those who have scored the marks in the CET, let's say more than 60%, those only people are eligible. Now you have given CET once and your score is, let's say, 67%. Then you are eligible for that. Then the next level of the recruitment will take place, something like that. Then if we talk about the composition of it, so chairman is the person of the rank of secretary. It has the representative from Ministry of Railways, Ministry of Finance, SSC, Railway Recruitment Board, and the IBPS. The government has invested around 1500 crores for this, but not important for us. Next is the Atal ranking of the institutions on innovation achievements, that is ARIIA. So it is being released by the Ministry of Human Resource and Development. It systematically ranks all the higher education institutions. Right, so ranks the higher education institutions in different categories. For example, these institutions are different, universities are different, private universities are different, public universities are different. So I've just kept one because that's not relevant for UPSC. They will not ask you which is the institution which has come first in this ranking. No, they will not. For example, I've just kept it private or the self-financed universities. The top one is Kalinga, and we have also the Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham as the 4th rank. Then the Namath Basai. What is this? It is basically an initiative from the Kerala government. It's an initiative from the Kerala government to teach the tribal children in their mother tongue. It is a part of their Samagra Shiksha Kerala program. So what they have done? Basically teaching the tribal people in their own language first. Then some exclusive laptops are given for this education purpose. Right? And it's being one of the good ways through which the education can be imparted to them, right? The scheme is going in a long way to preserving their ethnic culture because they'll be learning in their own language, right? Some of the tribes that are there in the tribal belt in these districts, tribal heavy districts, right? So retaining the hundreds of the tribal children so that the dropouts don't happen. So how can you use this particular scheme apart from the prelims? This can be your case study as well. For example, if the question comes on the conservation of the culture or the conservation of the language or the tribal welfare, tribal education, you can use this scheme as a case study saying that this is the good work done by any state government. Okay, right. Then we have the Scotch Gold Award, not very important. This has been given to the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. So this has been given for the so that this scholarship to the tribals which have been given, and some e-governance initiative that they have taken, with which the scholarship can be given on time. Scholarship released has reduced that time for which the scholarships have been reduced. So from that regard, they have been given this particular reward, and it is being conferred by an independent organization. Not very important. Next is the Student Entrepreneurship Program 2.0. So this entrepreneurship program is undertaken under the Atal Innovation Mission, which is a flagship program of the Niti Aayog. So under the Atal Innovation Mission, AIM, there is one thing, that is Atal Tinkering Labs. Atal Tinkering Labs. We'll read it about some place as well. Atal Tinkering Labs, and we will see in detail about Atal Innovation Mission. So about this Student Entrepreneurship Program. So Atal Tinkering Labs actually aims to build the idea of creativity, entrepreneurship among the students, right? So Student Entrepreneurship Program, the Atal Tinkering Lab works with these Dell volunteers. Okay, and obviously the idea is to promote the entrepreneurship spirit among these young innovators, right? So expanding the vision of technology for social good, encouraging the budding entrepreneurs. So remember that with the Dell innovators, Dell volunteers, and Student Entrepreneurship Program with the Atal Innovation Mission under the Niti Aayog. Next section of the governance will be WASH, that is water, sanitation and hygiene, and health, basically, so also including health. So first is Rashtriya Swachhta Kendra. So in Delhi, they have come up with this interactive experience on this institution that they have built up, Rashtriya Swachhta Kendra, right? So within this, you will see a lot of audiovisual things. Basically, it's celebrating the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Again, not important. Now within this Rashtriya Swachhta Kendra, they have done two case studies, very famous case studies in fact, that have led to the success of the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. First is the Rani Mistries. So they have put these figures like that, so as to make like a museum, you can see. So Rani Mistries in action. Now when you write about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the Rani Mistries of Jharkhand and some places in Bihar and other places, these women Mistries have been trained, right? And they have break the male bastion of masonry. They have supported their families, the women have come out and they have created the toilets. So Rani Mistries are a very good example if you talk about the women empowerment, if you talk about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, institutionalization of Swachhta. Then the children's as the champion of change, that is Vanar Sena. So they are voluntary Swachhagrahi, these children's. Those children, those who have inculcated the idea of Swachhta among the people. Then we have the Gandaki Mukt Abhiyan Bharat. So it's a week-long campaign for Swachhta again, from 18 to 5th August, not again very important. It's a Jan Andolan for Swachhta. Gandagi Mukt Bharat. Now, let us understand, before going to the next fact, let us understand this. So how the pricing of the drugs takes place, especially the drugs of essential variety. So we have a national list of essential medicine. It is known as NELEM. So national list of the essential medicines. So it determines the essentiality of a particular medicine, right? If the particular medicine is in this list, it is considered as essential. It is put under the Essential Commodities Act, right? The section 3 of the Essential Commodities Act issues which order? Drug price control order. So for example, on which drugs the prices now the cap needs to be there. And this is being implemented, that is the DPCO, drug price control order, needs to be implemented. It is being implemented. The drugs prices are decided by NAPPA, that is National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority, at the central level. And when it comes to the implementation at the state level, it is being now done by the PMRU, that is Price Monitoring and Resource Unit. This is also being done by the State Drug Controller, and now these units are being created. Getting my point? So for example, stents needs to be there, for example, put under the capping list recently. So it is put under the national list of the essential medicine. It is under the Essential Commodities Act, under which this orders has been issued. NAPPA gets the authority to enforce this. And when finally at the state level, at the grassroots level, these agencies are there. Getting my point? Let us see. So that is NAPPA, that is National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. So it was established as an independent regulator in 1997, pricing of drugs to ensure availability and accessibility of the medicine at the affordable prices. And this all thing is happening under which ministry? Department of Pharmaceutical, under Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizer. Remember that. Okay. So under Department of Pharmaceuticals and the Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizer, this is all being happening. Okay. Let us see. So it includes the fixation of the price and the revision of the prices of the scheduled drug under the Drug Price Control Order that we have discussed, that is issued from time to time. It also does the monitoring and the enforcement of the prices of non-scheduled drugs as well. Even if the drugs are not there, but it sees that it should not be sold more than MRP and all these things. Then coming to the state level, that is the Price Monitoring and the Resource Unit, that is PMRU. So now it is being set up in Karnataka under the aegis of the NAPPA, that is National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. It is registered as a society and it functions under the direct control of the state level drug controller. The idea is to do the same thing that NAPPA does, do it as the state level, right? So reports with the analyzed data and reports availability, overpricing of the medicine, action under the DPCO. If you remember this diagram and everything, you will remember. This diagram is a good snapshot of revising this. Right, let's go to the next one. That is the Kiran Helpline. Very easy. Kiran Helpline is the helpline for the toll-free mental health rehabilitation helpline that is being created by the government, by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Right, basically it has postponed the launch of the Kiran Helpline, that is why it is in news, but Kiran Helpline is for this only. Especially during the lockdown, mental health has become a very critical issue, isn't it? The mental health, and mental health becomes a very important discussion for our UPSC purpose as well. Next we go to a very, very important mission that we'll discuss again in the future also as it evolves. Because after Ayushman Bharat being launched in India, the next thing is the government has announced in the Independence Day speech, Prime Minister has announced about this National Digital Health Mission. That having a person, everybody having their own health ID, digital health ID. So it has been rolled out on a pilot basis and more details it will come. Obviously, we will update more. So implementing authority is the National Health Authority, which is also the implementing authority of Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Abhiyan Yojana, PMJ, which is under the Ayushman Bharat. Okay, we'll discuss Ayushman Bharat somewhere else. So it has a lot of components such as health ID, telemedicine, DigiDoctor, family health registry, personal health record, so that, for example, you have done diagnosis from one place, then medicine from the other place, then this is the first instance, then after let's say 2 months, 3 months, after 1 year, 2 year, again something has to be done. So these are the document hierarchy that you needs to maintain, so that multiple diagnosis one should not do, because a lot of money is being wasted or being invested in the diagnosis part only. Again and again the same diagnosis being done. Okay, so it's a voluntary healthcare program, remember that, because now we are going for the digital age, the privacy being a concern. That is why the government has said currently it's being said to be a voluntary scheme. Okay, it will address the sustainable goal number 3. Goal number 3 is for health. 1, 2, 3. 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. So sustainable goal is 3. It is related to health. Right. So aim: establish digital health system, improving the quality of the health, provide a platform for interoperability for healthcare data, and fast track creation of an updated health registries for entire country. The structure of it, as we have discussed, the implementing authority is the CEO of the NHA. It is being headed at the initial level by the Minister of Health, that is Mr. Harshvardhan for now. The Secretary of Health will be the second level implementing authority, and finally the main implementing authority will be National Health Authority, again, which is also taking care of which scheme Ayushman Bharat Jan Arogya Abhiyan. And this is the apex authority for National Health Authority, apex authority for implementing India's flagship public health insurance scheme, that is Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Earlier this authority was an agency, and then it has been given more power and it has become an authority. Okay, right. It is governed by a governing board chaired by the Union Minister of Health and Family Welfare. The NHA itself has a governing board headed by the same minister. The next is the Swasthya portal. So Swasthya portal is for the tribal health. Okay, so basically it's a dashboard, knowledge repository for the tribal health. Okay, so Ministry of Tribal Affairs along with the collaboration of the Piramal Swasthya Center of Excellence, they have not important the second partner. More importantly, what need to keep in mind, that is the Swasthya portal. So it's a dashboard, knowledge repository. Especially the problem among the tribal is the sickle cell anemia. Now that is the homework on your part. Why the sickle cell anemia is more prevalent among the tribals? Okay, this is one thing you must do. You can put in the comment box also. Why the sickle cell anemia disease is more prevalent among the tribals? Or this kind of portal is being developed. So very interactive portal they are trying to develop. One thing you also need to keep in mind, that is Alekh. Alekh is the monthly newsletter. For example, monthly current affair booklet that you read, similar to that, it's the monthly newsletter. That is Alekh from the Ministry of Tribal Affairs on their health and nutrition, tribal health and nutrition. Next is Electronic Vaccine Intelligence Network, EVIN. You will hear more about it as we go for the vaccine development and its distribution. So basically, it is not related to corona first of all. It will be related to corona as the corona's vaccine being created. So it's an innovative technological solution that aims at strengthening of the immunization supply chain in the country. So for example, the real-time information, how much vaccine is present, for example, in a particular village or a particular Anganwadi center, how much vaccine is available under the mission Indradhanush. We provide vaccine for 12 diseases. Mission Indradhanush. So how much vaccine is available at a particular place, where it is more required, how to manage the logistics of it, the supply chain of it, that is being done by the EVIN to provide a real-time information on the vaccine stocks, flows, stock, storage temperature and all these points. It is being implemented under the National Health Mission. So overarching National Health Mission, within it EVIN. Okay, so real-time data visibility, improving stock availability, tools and report, strengthening the health system and all these things, it is being done. This is being very creative. This has got a lot of, it has won a lot of praise and awards also. It has won Public Health Initiative Award, right? EVIN has won a lot of awards. So it is being one of the good case studies from India when it comes to health and vaccine. So in April 2020, since April 2020, this EVIN is also taking care of the material supply of the COVID-19. So stocks and all. Using the same infrastructure that we have for the other vaccines, we will also use the same infrastructure for the coronavirus vaccine when it comes. It includes the three part, that is technology, governance and the human resource. Everywhere, to get anything successful, you need technology, you need governance and you need human resource, isn't it? Then only any program, any implementation will be successful. Then we go for Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. From the name itself, Nasha Mukt means drug free. So it will run for 7 months. So it's a basically campaign like thing. It's a campaign only in 272 specific district where the problem of the substance use is more. So in that regard, it is as per the national policy on the narcotic drugs and the psychotropic substance. Okay. So not very important. The last section we want to discuss today is in governance, that is the vulnerable section of society. The first one is, it's the Indian Association of Parliamentarian on Population and Development. Not very important again. But why it was in the news? Because the Vice President has released the two of their booklets. The one booklet is on the elderly's population, that is elderly population's status and support system. The other report is on the status of the sex ratio at birth in India, and both of the reports have been released by the National Association of the Parliamentarians on the Population and Development. Now you'll ask me, first of all, it's a non-governmental organization. Now the question can be, why the name parliamentarian is there? Yes, because the composition of it involves it's your in the standing committee of this NGO are the MPs only. The MPs, member of parliament. So its standing committee consists of 37 MPs, and that is why existing and the old ones, and that is why it is a National Indian Association of the Parliamentarians, right? The overarching idea is population and development. So basically improving the quality of life so as to maintain the balance between this population and development, and especially in India when the population is becoming a very controversial and very significant issue now. Next is Naya Savera scheme. This Naya Savera scheme is implemented under the Ministry of Minority Affairs. So the idea is to provide the free coaching to the notified minority students in a selected coaching institutions. This coaching is provided not only for civil services but also pre-medical, pre-engineering. Keep in mind. Okay. So this is Naya Savera scheme under the Ministry of Minority Affairs. Then we have the J.R. Jaitley Task Force. So this task force, basically in the budget 2020, the government has said that in the budget speech, the government has said that we are thinking that we should think about the increasing of the marriageable age for the women. It is being 18 years for now. Now we have to amend the Sharda Act of 1929, right? So in 1978, the age has been increased from 15 to 18. Now it has to be increased to 21 or not. This panel will decide. So as per the budget speech, the budget commitment of the government, they have established one task force under the J.R. Jaitley. Okay. So the Women Child Development Ministry has constituted a task force to examine the issues related to infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, total fertility rate, and all these things. Specifically this issue. Okay. So keeping that in mind. Actually, they have said that the report will be published in July only, but it is not being released. Next, the transgender person timeline for justice. Let us see. There is a last fact. So transgender people in 2014, a very significant judgment has come. That is Nalsa versus the Union of India. You have to remember the name of these judgments. Very, very significant and very, very important judgments for your mains examination and for pre also. So in 2014, Nalsa versus Union of India judgment has come, which says that the transgender people will be considered as the third gender and all the fundamental rights will be applicable to them, right? They will be provided with right to self-identification of gender. So they will self-identify whether I'm a male or female or a transgender, right? Then in 2014, a private member bill has come, that is moved by Shashi Tharoor. He has moved a bill so as to make it a legislation for the empowerment of the transgender community, putting everything what Supreme Court has said into a legislative format. Then the government has said, okay, now you have brought this bill, now we will bring our own bill. So that bill lapsed. In 2018, another significant thing happened. The Supreme Court has decriminalized homosexuality by partially striking down a provision of 377. So 377 completely was not done. A part of it which decriminalizes homosexuality, that has been decriminalized. And in 2019, the government has finally come up with a Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act. Okay, there were a lot of problems in this particular act, we will see somewhere. But under the act, it has been said that we will create this National Council of the Transgender Person. And now this council has been created, and this is what we have to discuss. Getting my point? So this is a timeline that you need to keep in mind. So Nalsa judgment, then the private member bill, then this judgment, then this particular act, and then this council has been created. So this council has been created, as we have discussed, under the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act to mainstream transgender communities concerned and to ensure that the transgender welfare boards are set up in every state. It will be established under the chairperson of this national council will be the Union Minister of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. You need to keep that in your mind. If you talk about the composition of it, so chairperson, as we have discussed, so chairperson is the minister. The vice chairperson is the Minister of State, if there is any. Minister of State of the Socialist Empowerment. Apart from it, very significantly, you need to keep in mind who are the other members. Representative from the 5 states. States decided based upon the region: north, south, north, west, south, east, center. 5 member of the transgender community and the civil societies. This is significant. So 5 member from the transgender community are also the member of this National Council of the Transgender. Then the representative from the 10 central department. For example, the secretaries, the Niti Aayog, people from Niti Aayog, those are also there. No need to recall all the names. 3-year terms will be given to these people. The function will be to advise the government on the measures needs to be taken, monitor and evaluate all the interventions being done, review and coordinate with the different states as well, grievance redressal of the people, and other function as the center gives it to. So this is the National Council for the Transgender person. Getting my point? Okay, so that's the end of the session. Let us very quickly come to the question. The first question is, in the context of the Indian history, this is a 2020 question, the Rakhmabai case of 1884 revolved around women right to gain education, age of consent, restitution of the conjugal rights. What are these conjugal rights? Conjugal rights basically the rights of the spouses to have sexual relationships with the other spouse. So you can try, obviously you can pause, then you can try the answer. This is a 2020 question. Now, Rakhmabai case, from where you could have got a cue or from where you have prepared. So there are two things. First, age of consent bill everyone has read. That is there in our all the conventional books, age of consent bill, right? 1891, which raised the age of marriage from 10 to 12. The opposition of Bal Gangadhar Tilak to it, everybody knows that Bal Gangadhar Tilak was not in the favor of this. And the background of this age of consent bill was set up by this Rakhmabai case. Okay, and the Bal Gangadhar Tilak also opposed this Rakhmabai in this particular case. So, if we talk about Rakhmabai case, so she was a pioneer in the medicine. She was in fact one of the first practicing women doctor in India. And she was a women right activist, a feminist you can say. So what was the story? She got married at the age of 11. So her husband was there, Dadaji Bhikaji. Now, so as was the practice, though they were married at the child level, but they are sent to the husband's home after they attain the particular age, 15, 18 like that. Husband said, come to my home finally. But she said, no, I will educate myself. She stayed home, she educated herself, and she said, no, I will not go for these conjugal rights. I will not come to your home. I will not indulge in the sexual act. Now this husband goes to the court. He goes to the courts arguing about his right of having these conjugal rights, right? So the case involved question over the age of consent. What is the age of consent? Because the child marriage has happened. The court, whether the court should intervene or not, because you can remember after 1857, the courts have decided or the government has decided not to intervene into the social practices because this is a Hindu practice. The law versus the tradition, the social reform versus the conservatism. The Bal Gangadhar Tilak said, because she has read a lot, because she is too much educated, because of which these problems are coming. Okay. Finally, the case was not decided. Basically, this husband got some compensation out of the court, but it raised overall debate over these issues. So the case was not solved actually. It was out of the court settlement that has happened. So answer is age of consent and the restitution of the conjugal rights. The next question is one question on the CSIR, that is, with reference to the Council of the Scientific and the Industrial Research, consider the following statements. CSIR works for promotion, guidance and coordination of the scientific and industrial research in India. It's a statutory body working under the Union Ministry of Science and Technology. The Prime Minister is the president of the CSIR and chairs the meeting of the Council Society. It's a very significant institution in India when it comes to the innovation and all these things. Innovation, research, laboratory and all these things. CSIR. You can pause the video and try the answer. So CSIR is basically, it's not an statutory organization. You need to recall that. Remember that. It was set up before independence in 1942 at New Delhi. It is funded by Ministry of Science and Tech. It's an autonomous body. It's not an statutory body. It is registered under the Societies Registration Act. Okay. The founder director of the CSIR was Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, and on the name of it, the prizes are also given. Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize. Very important, because the people, that is in your GS3 paper, that is the people who have contributed to the science and tech in India. So it's the largest R&D organization, 38 labs, 39 outreach center, and like that. If you talk about the composition of it, so the president is the prime minister is the president of it. The vice president is the minister of science and tech. It has a governing body and the advisory body. No need to go into detail of it. Just remember, the prime minister is the head of it. So obviously the statement 2 becomes wrong. It's not an statutory body. It works for the promotion. Yes, it is the prime minister is the president of CSIR. So statement answer D is the right answer. Let us see the next question. That is PISA, Program for the International Student Assessment. It's a worldwide study by UNESCO. Secondly, it intends to evolve the higher education system in member and the non-member state. Since its inception, India participated in all round of the PISA testing. Very important, it will be covered in current affair also, that India decided to get into this 2021 PISA testing. Okay, let us see. You can obviously pause the video and try the answer. Right, coming back to PISA. So it's a voluntary, first of all, voluntary for both the member state and the non-member state. Of whom? OECD. That is Organization for Economic Cooperation Development. Is India a part of it, OECD? Answer is no. India is not part of OECD. OECD basically comprises of the rich countries. So from 2000, they are having this assessment, student assessment. And students around the 15-year-old. So basically school system, not the higher education. Okay, to assess the quality and the inclusivity. The focus is mainly not on the memory part of it, but on the maths, reading comprehension, problem solving, and all these things. Now what about India? India has participated only once in 2009. And the result has come that we were ranked 72 out of the 73. And India said, no, now we will not participate. So finally, we have decided that in 2021, we will participate and the school from the Chandigarh will participate. This is being decided by India. So now in the PISA, we will be participating in the 2021. Okay, let us see the answers. So it's a worldwide study by UNESCO. No, it is by OECD. It tends to evaluate higher education. No, this school education. Then its inception, India participated. No, so all the statements are wrong. None of the above is the right answer. Let us see the next question. Very easy. Atal Innovation Mission. It's a previous year question. It's set up under the DST, Employment Niti Aayog, and this we have read about Niti Aayog. So we'll read more about the detail of the Atal Innovation Mission Adult Tinkering Lab when we'll come to it. The last question is on one question on the ancient medieval history, art and culture. With reference to Vikramshila University, consider the following statements. The Dharampala, the Pala king, the founder of the Vikramshila University. Dharampala, the Pala king, was the founder of the famous Vikramshila University. Second, it is located in the present day West Bengal state. Which of the statements is correct? कौन से statement correct हैं? So you can pause the video again. So the Vikramshila is basically situated in Bihar. In fact, you can see Bihar was an ancient place of learning. So Vikramshila you can see here. Then in Vikramshila, along with the Nalanda, very famous during the time of the Pala kings, great patrons of learning, especially the Buddhist learning. So you can see more institutions of learning: Takshila, Udantapuri, Vallabhi, Nagarjunkonda, Manyakhet, and all this. So the Bhagalpur in Bihar, it is situated. We have seen the location here, Bhagalpur, Bihar. Right? The King Dharampala. We have, I think in the index session, we have discussed about these Pala kings, right? So second Pala king. The first Pala king is Gopala, who established the Pala kingdom in 750 CE. Then the son of the Gopala, that is Dharampala, 783 to 820. So he patronized this. So it's a Buddhist learning center. Vajrayana flourished here. Tantric teaching is done here, and it is being destroyed by, it is being said that it is destroyed by the Muhammad Bakhtiyar Khalji in 1193. So let us see the options. So the option is Dharampala, yes, he founded, and then located in West Bengal, no, in the Bihar. So option 1 is right. You need to remember each and every one of these universities, Takshila, Vikramshila, Nalanda, because these are very, very important. Now that's the end of the session. Very quickly, let us revise. So discussion started on the RC Kudhad expert committee. Then we discussed about HEFA and RISE, that is for the higher education financing. HEFA has scope has been expanded to include the school education also. Then NRA, National Recruitment Agency, that is ARIA, that is the higher education ranking of the higher education centers. Then Namath Basai can be a good case study for tribal education, as we discussed. Scotch Gold Award, then Student Entrepreneurship Summit, Dell volunteers along with the Niti Aayog, Atal Tinkering Lab, Atal Innovation Mission. Then Swachh Bharat case studies we have discussed, Rani Mistri and Vanar Sena. Then Gandagi Mukt Bharat, not very important, related to Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. The drug pricing snapshot we have discussed, Essential Commodities Act, DPCO, that is Drug Pricing Control Order, then NAPPA, and then PMRU. Then Kiran Helpline postponed, mental health, then National Digital Health Mission. And then we discuss about National Health Authority, then Swasthya Portal, even, and the Nasha Mukt Bharat. Even that is very important for vaccine development. The Naya Savera scheme under the vulnerable section, Jaya Jetli force for increasing the women age and the related issue in infant mortality rate and total fertility rate and all these things. Then transgender people, a timeline, National Council for Transgender Person. And lastly, the 5 questions, that is the Rakmabai case, then CSIR, PISA, and Vikramshila. One more question, Atal Tinkering Labs. So with this, we finished the first session of governance. I know it's a relatively long series. Why? Because we are also including the 5 questions in it. And that's understandable so, isn't it? So I hope you get most of it. And the restructuring that we have done, this education and this, it will also help you in your mains preparation and overall preparation of a topic such as health, education, sanitation, and all these things. So see you in the next session, everyone. Bye-bye for now. Thank you. Okay, the next session, governance, will be having only 2 sessions, 1 and 2, not 3 sessions, just like we used to have last time. Okay, bye-bye.